K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com.
Attention Patriots, Red Nation Rising Radio is about to begin.
Please return your Republic to its original position and prepare for takeoff.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Red Nation Rising Radio. It's your reddest hour on radio, and we are here to answer your questions, your tweets. It's your chat room. We're monitoring for questions, so please let us know what you'd like for us to ask our guest tonight. I'm Lou. Say hello, Jared, to all of our peeps, you Yahoo News superstar.
How are you all doing tonight? Probably not.
Yeah, we're your guides to the rest hour on radio, so let's go. Speaking of Yahoo News, we're putting you on notice, Yahoo. I think that you've really kind of headed down the wrong road here. I realize that you've got a lot of contributors, but you need to fire some of those and maybe hire some editors. Jared, let's talk about this just a little bit. So, you were woken up in the night or early this morning, or was it late last night? Or
I had just laid down and my phone had a notification, and then I saw, ooh, what's this? Yahoo News, and I click on it, and there's my face, and it's not really. It's the most bizarre thing. It's my profile picture with the comments next to it, which is something you never see for a featured image in any article, let alone Yahoo News.
Never seen it.
No.
Never, ever.
So I was shocked when I read it. I mean, I actually, my first reaction was I laughed. I was half asleep, but I was laughing. And then I realized that's Yahoo News. Wow. You know, this is, and I couldn't believe how crappy the writing was, and there was false information. Nothing in there was even true. I made that graphic myself. I didn't use Right Wing News graphic. I just happened to share that with one person. I wasn't promoting it. The article said I was promoting it on Facebook. I posted it once.
Someone asked you a question. They said, nice picture, where'd you get that? And you said, well, here's somewhere you can make your own. And it just happened to be the Right Wing News tool to flag your AVI.
Right. Right. And I didn't even know Right Wing News had one until after I made my own. And I made my own. You know what? It doesn't matter why I made my own. If I made it because I didn't want the rainbow flag and I wanted to have the American flag, or if I made it for 4th of July, it doesn't matter.
It happens to be the flag of our country.
Yeah.
It happens to be our national flag. And if you, for 1 second, in Great Britain, where Miss Katie Solomon, who we really don't know what you did to tick her off at this point, since you don't even know who she is, but evidently she knows you. If you, for once, it suggested to a Brit that they shouldn't wave their flag or use their flag for something, oh my gosh, would they throw tea in your face?
Yeah, well, leading up to the 2014 primary season, I was a freelance writer at Yahoo, and I was grabbing whatever stories I could get that were paying, and they weren't all political. I started writing my own and submitting them, not assignments, on political subjects, and I started writing about Common Core. At that point, they no longer needed my services, and I noticed that a couple other conservative-leaning writers made their way onto Examiner. And I could tell it was a liberal, completely liberal outlet, and that's the case with a lot of mainstream media, larger outlets. But I don't know what... The fact that she used my profile picture, she had to have went on my page. Okay, I have a theory, because... And we're going to connect the dots over the next few days, and we'll share it with everybody, but we've got Angela investigating. I've done some investigative work. I have a ton of information on this Katie, and I don't like doing this. I don't like digging stuff up on people, but you know what? It's game on right now with this Katie Solomon.
She started it, yeah.
Because she messed with the bull, she's going to get the horns. I have her email, her IP address. Okay, this woman needs to cut the crap. Okay, because she's calling here and trying to get Red Nation Rising's radio show off the air. She's going way over the line. The article, yeah, that's one thing. She's calling another continent and messing with us. She's messing with thousands of patriots, thousands of people that love America and want to restore America back to what it once was. I'm telling you, the support today was amazing. I appreciate every single person that supported me, and in turn, it was supporting all of us. We're all together in this.
We're a family.
It was awesome. And I doubt that this woman expected that, and I'm sure Yahoo wasn't thrilled, because they took down the image, they changed the headline, they deleted comments, they were scrambling.
We caused a social media freak out at Yahoo, which is just hilarious to me. That was the funniest thing that happened all day and a lot. I saw a lot of pretty crazy, funny stuff, and some of the comments from some of our people in our team were really, really good and really struck home. But I think this, it goes to the bigger issue of free speech, right? So your speech is free as long as I like it. As long as I approve of your speech, then it's okay for you to have free speech. So the most interesting thing, before we cut to our breaker clip or whatever you have for us today, I think you said Angela was doing some digging. She shared something with me before the show that I want to share for everybody. The avatar tool, that he calls it a profile filter. The American flag profile filter was created by someone called Ben Chapman, who goes by @ChapmanGOP. Everybody in the chat room or on Twitter, give him a shout out, tell him thank you, because he posted the article, which of course you said your picture is the preview image. It comes up and it says, so according to Yahoo, anyone with an American flag profile filter is homophobic. LOL. Dear Yahoo, the movement was started by a gay person. Screw you and your fascist rainbow flag. This is coming from the gay man who created the first tool that I ever saw. It's dated earlier than a lot of the others, and started it for July 4th, because guess what? This gay man actually is proud to be an American.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know you don't care what these left-wing crazies think about you. I know that you appreciate the support that you got today. I have a flag filter on my profile now, which I did not have before, but I might keep forever. But I think you might. Do you have a break or a clip coming up for us?
Yeah, I got a break, and then we're going to welcome on Brad McQueen after the break, and we'll go into break right now.
See you guys at 2.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of libertative conservatism.
Where no one is safe and no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey?
Today.
Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com. The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get sad again.
Welcome back to Red Nation Rising Radio. We have with us now, I believe, Brad McQueen. Are you with us, Brad?
Yes, I am. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being on our show tonight. We're really, really glad to have you. Heard a lot of fascinating things about your story, and I'm just going to ask you to tell us the story, a little bit about this story that you, I believe you outlined in your book, and your story of being in the room and getting kicked out of the room. And I think we're all really fascinated and really interested to hear that story, if you don't mind telling it for the millionth time.
No problem. Now, did I need to mention anything about Common Core, or first? Is that okay? And then
you tell your story in whatever order you want to. Okay. Yes, please start from the beginning and explain to us kind of how you got to where you were, and what your experience has been.
Okay. I'm a fifth grade teacher from Tucson, Arizona, and I've worked for the past. I worked for over 5 years on our state test, and I was a teacher for going on 12 years now. And when I was working on our state test, every state has their own statewide test they have to give to see if the kids are learning what they're supposed to be learning in the classroom. One summer in 2010, I heard about this thing called Common Core that our state just adopted, and I was working on our test back in 2010, and I asked, well, what is this Common Core thing? And the people at our State Department of Education, that's where I was working over the summer, just mentioned, well, it's a new set of standards. And when I asked them for more information, like, well, who wrote it? Do I have to, do anything different in my classroom? They pretty much blew it off and said, don't worry, it's not going to be implemented for a while, and it may not be around after the 2012 election, because Obama was going up against, what's his face from Massachusetts? Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney, yeah. What's his face?
And they were thinking, it's an Obama administration, Arnie Duncan education reform strategy, and so it may go away. So don't worry about it, basically, I was told. We'll flash forward to 2013 or so. I'm still working on a state test, and they asked me to go work on this Common Core test. This PARC test is what it's called. It's short. It's an acronym. There's a lot of acronyms with this Common Core crowd. And it's called the PARC test. It's one of the testing consortiums or groups at Arizona, where I'm from, is a part of that. And so I went, I had no idea what Common Core was about. I had no idea what it was going to look like on the test. But I liked working on tests, and I wanted to see what it was all about, and if I needed to change anything in my instruction. Maybe I just figured it'd be slightly different. Then when I went there, I went to actually Chicago. I went twice for 1 week at a time, and I was full of questions because I'm used to creating questions on tests, analyzing the results in Arizona from start to finish. I know test creation, and I know standards. Learning standards is what they are in the classroom, what the kids are supposed to learn. So I was full of questions. Hey, where'd this Common Core thing come from? Like a little puppy dog running around. Who wrote these standards? And where are they going? What do we do with those? And they just basically told me, they cut it off and said, well, if you want to learn more about it, there's a website called the Common Core State Standard Initiative's website. You can go learn about it there. You're here to work on this test. They kind of shut me down. And as I was working on the test, the first week I was working with them, I was working on rubrics, writing rubrics, because there's a component of the test where the kids will write an essay about something. And I noticed that all the kids were failing. According to the rubric, they were all failing. And so I asked, I said, well, all the kids are failing. What's going on? And they said, basically, a lot of those kids that are failing are giving their opinion or their thoughts. And we don't want kids to give their opinions or their thoughts. If they give their opinions or their thoughts on their essays, they're going to fail this test. And that was kind of a kick in the stomach for me because, well, not only their attitude was very secretive and they talked in acronyms, and I felt like I was, visiting the Church of Scientology. It was a bit cultish. And that's why my book is called The Cult of Common Core, because it felt like I was this outsider. I didn't know their lingo. They had their private meetings all the time. If you asked questions, they shot you down. But when they mentioned something about the kids, we don't want to know what they think. We don't want to know what their opinions in their writing. They're going to fail if they do. And I mentioned to them that, well, I'm a fifth grade teacher. We don't teach kids that way. We tell kids, if you're given something to write an essay, well, you do the research on all sides of a topic, for instance, then you write the essay. And it's your position on that topic after you've reviewed all multiple sides of that topic. And the woman looked at me in disbelief and just said, well, that's not the Common Core way of doing writing. We expect that the kids will take the opinions of the experts we present to them on the test, and in their writing, they will repeat back the opinions of the experts we put on the test. And I said, well, we don't teach that way. And they said, well, teachers will begin to teach that way. Once the test comes out, they will see what we're expecting in the classroom. So basically what I got was, first off, shut up, don't ask so many questions. But secondly, I got was the new Common Core way of learning for kids. It wasn't going to be thinking for yourselves. It was going to be whatever is in the textbook that they present to you, you better repeat that back. And teachers better teach their kids to do that because the test scores are now attached to the teacher salaries and teacher evaluations. It can go up to almost 50% of a teacher's evaluation can be a test score. So that was my first sort of kick in the stomach moment when there was this new Common Core way of doing things. And it just didn't feel right. It just felt gross. And so I started doing a bunch of research on my own up in my hotel room, like later that day. And then when I got home, and what I realized was, there was a small burgeoning anti-Common Core movement, but they were being labeled as tinfoil hat wearers, like, the normal Belinskyite strategy of belittling and marginalizing the opposition. And I started hearing things, I started realizing after there were some really strong voices out there. Michelle Malkin was there. Glenn Beck was involved. There were some websites in Arizona, and Truth in American Education was there. But very little. There was no book on what is Common Core. I just wanted to know, give me the basics on what this Common Core thing is. I didn't want to do all the research. I just wanted to give me the basics, and then I'll start doing even more research. But there wasn't a book out there.
And they were very secretive. Yeah, it sounds like they were very so same old, right? So we've seen this more and more over the years. But I was really fascinated by a couple of things you said when you were saying that they didn't want the children to give their opinions. I was thinking to myself, oh, Lord, please let him say they wanted facts. But you said what I feared you were going to say is that it's not that they don't want opinions. They want them to regurgitate the opinion of the expert that they've chosen.
Exactly. They want their facts. So I look right up ahead into the classroom, of course. How is it going to play out in the classroom? Well, there's textbooks that have wrong information. You have to adjust and teach the kids the right stuff, the most up-to-date stuff. Or what they're trying to do at Common Core is make everything digitized online so it can be changed immediately. So they're pushing the whole textbooks, online textbooks. So you could have an administration who believes in man-caused global warming as a fact, and you better be teaching that in the classroom because the kids are going to be assessed on that, and the assessment is going to reflect on the teacher, and then they can go into the computers and see what the teacher was teaching when and what standards and how were they doing this. But a good way to understand Common Core as well, because it's such a big thing. It isn't just what the kids are learning in the class. That's what I thought it was. But the more I researched, first off, there's so many acronyms I couldn't understand it. And I think that's by design. It's kind of like a lot of people call it, and I've always called it the Obamacare of education. Obamacare has nothing to do with it, with health care. It has everything to do with control. So, but they code it in this, let's get health care for everyone and help the needy. And Common Core is the same thing. It's this, let's make our kids more competitive internationally. Let's up the rigor of what they learn in the classroom. It's all an attempt to just better our kids because according to these progressives in Washington, D.C., our kids never measure up to any other country in the world, even though our kids put people on the moon. So they code it in this, feel-good thing that this is what it's all about. So if you question it, you look like you hate kids and you don't want them to have more rigorous teaching in the classroom. What it's about is, in the big picture, is it's this big animal, this Common Core, that has taken over how education is being delivered and what is being delivered into the states. The control over education no longer belongs to the state capitals or secretaries of education in the states, the governors, or the people at the local level. It has been moved to Washington, D.C. It is being centrally directed now. And it not only includes what the kids are learning in the class, the Common Core standards, it includes data suctioning systems. NSA-like data suctioning systems is what I call them. Officially, they're called statewide longitudinal data systems. Basically, they suction information and compose a data file on kids from pre-K up through college, career, and beyond. And no longer is it anonymous information. It's very much tied to the kid, their name, their ID, to the family. They also changed the FERPA laws. FERPA laws are the laws that protect kids and parents' control over education and kids' privacy in education. You can't get anything about a kid unless you go through the parents first. That used to be the case with the FERPA laws. But the Obama administration has changed the way they implement the FERPA laws, the education privacy laws, so that they no longer have to go and get permission from parents or even notify them if their information is being sold off to a private company, which can happen now under Common Core. So Common Core is a set of learning standards, what's being taught in the class. It's a data suctioning system. It's also a testing system to make sure that everyone's in compliance, the teachers especially, and there's an evaluation system as well, a teacher evaluation system tied to the children's data, and there's a whole data file created on teachers so that they can see that if the little kid on the test isn't getting these if they have questions about guns on the test and they're given the wrong answers, well, they can go back into the data stream and find out what lesson was being taught when, and were they complying with what Common Core Central wants. So it's a very big thing that has happened sort of on the down low. It was implemented when the whole Obamacare takeover happened of healthcare. It happened at the exact same time, except while we were fighting about Obamacare, this was being implanted in our schools and became fully operational with all its tentacles in place and all the structures in place the year before this last school year. The standards were implemented. Now the testing has just started, the nationwide testing, and then the data streams they're all in place. They're suctioning the data as we speak.
And this has been pretty much a regulatory movement. It's not, anything that's really specifically been legislated. It's been run by regulators more so. Is that right?
Partially, because that's a very good question. Because I skipped over that. Because you would say, well, how did it just happen? Did they come in and just overstep all these great conservative governors? Like in Arizona, we had Jan Brewer, who's is a conservative in quotes. Why did they go along with this? Why did they sit back and not do anything? Well, the fact is they willingly gave over control. And it sounds crazy, and it is, but back in 2009, when there was the big meltdown, the financial meltdown, one of the first budgets that were going to be cut in most states was going to be the education budget. It's a very easy place, and it's a big chunk of their budget. So there was the threats of cutting education budgets. So as part of the stimulus plan, President Obama got this big multi-billion-dollar, close to $1 trillion in stimulus money for, shovel-ready jobs and infrastructure. Remember all that? That never happened.
Yeah.
It was also a big chunk of that was for education. It was to stabilize education so that we didn't have to make cuts. And so the states got a bunch of stabilization money, and they also got this thing called Race to the Top. I don't want to go into too many of the acronyms and names because I get confused with them all, but all this money had strings tied to it.
Right.
In exchange for that money, the governors agreed to adopt the Common Core standards, which weren't written by teachers. They were written by testing companies. And they were written in Washington, D.C. by a private company that holds the copyright. Our state standards are no longer written in our state houses or at our departments of education. So they agreed to completely change their education delivery system in their state and hand it over to the Obama administration basically and adopt their Common Core standards, which hadn't even been written yet. They had just had to promise to adopt these standards when they were written. And then that's when they also agreed in the contracts that they signed to get the money to implement the data suctioning systems, the teacher evaluation systems, and the testing systems. They had to all be in place. So the governors all agreed, about 46 governors. 4 governors didn't. They decided it wasn't worth the loss in sovereignty over education. The money wasn't worth it. And the names are pretty familiar. Sarah Palin of Alaska, Governor Sarah Palin turned down the money and kept sovereignty. Governor Perry of Texas turned down the money. And then the governors of Nebraska and Virginia also turned down the money.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, in their states, the ironic thing is that you keep hearing about how we need a better workforce, we need a stronger economy, and Common Core is the answer for it. Well, the states that didn't implement it back in 2010 have some of the strongest economies. I'll go with whatever Texas is doing over any other state, with what
Right.
Illinois is doing or New Jersey is doing. Their economy is strong, and everyone's moving there, and all the companies are moving there, and they've got an incredible workforce.
So
that's how the governors brought it into the states. And they didn't have to go through the legislatures. What they did was they had their state board of education, which is in most cases the governor appoints them. In our state of Arizona, they appoint all the members of their state board of education, and their secretary of education. Sometimes it's called something else. Like in our state, it's the public instruction, superintendent of public instruction, the chief educator in the state. All they had to have was, instead of going to the legislature, they had a vote of the State Board of Education, which usually the Secretary of Education in the state is a member of. That implemented the entire education scheme. And they bypassed the legislature. There were no hearings. There were no public discussion. They keep saying there were, but guess what? I was up at our state house, or our Department of Education, working on these tests. I knew a lot about the standards of the tests. I didn't know about any feedback or discussions that were going on, and even if there was discussions going on, what do you talk about? We didn't know anything about it. But that's how it got in the States without a vote.
That's amazing. So going into the presidential elections, you might want to remember that Rick Perry was one that said no. I'm not saying I support Rick Perry, but you just, if Common Core is important to you, you might want to remember that. So we're going to have to go to break here, Brad, but we've got a lot of comments in the chat room about, what is about the real purpose of Common Core, and, is it really meant to, regardless of what they say, maybe dumb down our kids? So we're going to cut to a break real quick, and we'll be back in 2 minutes with more Red Nation Rising Radio.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
The feeling most people get when they hear Barack Obama speech, I felt this thrill going up my leg. I don't have that too often.
Steady.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. Ricky Robinson, host of America Off the Rails, will tackle the important issues facing America today as he tries to keep America from coming off the track. Get ready to hear the truth every Monday through Friday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, here on K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network.
Welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy.
Abolish the IRS. Take all 125,000 IRS agents and put them on our southern border.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride. Both ends of the ozone burning. Funny how the world keeps turning. Look, Mom, no hands. I love this American.
Welcome back.
Sorry, you guys, I was on mute. That was my bad. Thank you, Jared, because I probably would have just kept talking if you hadn't said something. Brad, welcome back. We want to hear from you. Do you really think that this plan is going to make our kids smarter? Or do you believe, I heard you say it's all about control. It's the Obamacare of education. So you can't control people who think for themselves, obviously. We talked about that earlier. You can't control people who are really smart. Kids you really educate to be smart and think for themselves are that much harder to control. So our Red Nation Rising Illinois account wants to know, is this thing really meant to dumb our kids down so that they are easier to control?
Yeah, I mean, it has, usually what they say, a good rule of thumb is whatever they claim Common Core does, it's the opposite. I teach standards. I've seen the Common Core tests. Our previous test in Arizona was way better than this piece of crap test that we just gave this last year. And the standards aren't very rigorous or anything else. You can debate any standard, but they're not designed to make our kids smarter. It's to make them more compliant. It's to make them good bureaucrats, rule followers. And the odd thing with Common Core is, not odd, but everyone who's for it, all the people in power that are for it, whether it's Bill Gates, who's funding a lot of these Common Core front groups that help promote Common Core, or whether it's President Obama, Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan, or our Governor Ducey in Arizona, or any of these other governors that secretly push it, their kids all go to private schools. Common Core isn't in private schools right now. It's in public schools. So they've got this two-tier system of education where they're educating their kids to be the shepherds of society, and the rest of the kids in public schools and elsewhere to be the sheep that follow along. And there's this weird collusion that's going on because all the chambers of commerces across the country are pushing Common Core. They love it. And there's a lot of money from the Gates Foundations and the federal government pushing this message as well, because they call it Common Core is supposedly making our kids college and career ready. What it's making them is the human resource department, K through 12 education system, is being made the human resource department for big business. So big business puts in an order, and they want iron lung makers to help with the polio outbreak, several decades back, push out some people that can manage and maintain iron lungs, rather than creating the kids that we've always created that go out and think outside the box and find the cure for polio, and let the kids in China that do well on tests, let them make the iron lungs. We'll create Apple, Google, the biggest, most powerful military in the world, put a man on the moon and a rover on Mars. Because that wasn't good enough for the big government progressives who want to control our kids' minds, and they want to destroy our country's exceptionalism. And one thing really quick, Common Core, this whole mindset, this whole big government centralization of centralization of control over our kids' minds through education and in the classroom, it isn't a left or a right or a Democrat or a Republican thing. It's a progressive thing. It's progressives in the Republican Party like Jeb Bush and his big brother, and it's Barack Obama, it's the Clintons, it's Bill Gates, it's progressives in the left and right are pushing this. And it's a big issue now with Republicans in particular over the last election cycle and going into the presidential cycle. Rand Paul's against Common Core, Kerry's against Common Core, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump's big time against Common Core. And they're actually speaking to that, and they're looking at it not just as an education thing, just like Obamacare isn't just a health thing, just like the EPA measures and things isn't about the environment. It's all about centralization of control and big government progressives, as usual, wanting to tell us how best to live our lives, and now they want to tell parents how best to raise their kids and how best to have their kids think and act and talk and speak and walk. So you will see a lot more Republicans coming out against the Common Core. And unions in particular were big-time supporters of Common Core when it first came out, the teacher unions, because they thought they were going to have a big chunk of it and have a lot of control. Well, they were left out of the process, so now they're kind of fighting back. Some of the big unions like the National Education Association and others are now fighting back because guess what? The Common Core tests are going to be used to evaluate teachers. So if the kids don't do well in these horrible tests, which is what happened in New York State, well, their salaries are going to be reduced. And if their salaries are reduced, then their union dues, which everyone in New York, I think, has to join a union if you're at a public school, your union dues are reduced. So some unions are now turning against Common Core.
Those poor unions, their buddies in D.C. keep doing things to them that make them unhappy. I feel really sorry for them. We did have. They can be paid off.
They can be paid off in any second, just like with Obamacare. You give them, like in New York, Cuomo just delayed the teacher evaluation, the effects by a year or two, I think. So they calmed down a little bit. They got paid off a little bit just to shut up a little bit more. And then I'm not saying all union teachers feel this way. It's the big union bosses, it's the big fat checks sitting on their big fat asses, collecting that check. A lot of good union teachers are against Common Core because they see what it's doing to the kids and they see what it's doing. And teachers like me, I'm not a union teacher, who see that the control over what happens in the classroom has been pulled out from us. And it's all been done secretly, stealthily, and parents have been caught off guard. But now there's a big, huge movement growing, grassroots movements of moms in particular that are rising up, and without the money and the billions of dollars, they're taking down politicians. They got our superintendent of public instruction, who was against Common Core, elected. They pressured Ducey into at least acting like he's against Common Core. A lot of Republican governors who got elected because they were against Common Core, supposedly, are are acting. They could get rid of it out of their state overnight if they wanted to, but what they're doing instead is, because a lot of them are in bed with big business, what they're doing is they're setting up Common Core standard review committees, in quotes, and then they spend a year reviewing the Common Core standards, and they're going to make it more Arizona standards. They're going to be more controlled by Arizona, is what they say. And what they end up doing is just reviewing them, saying how great they are, changing the name. Instead of the Common Core standards, they're now Arizona's college and career ready standards. It's a big charade our governor's playing, and a lot of so-called conservative governors like Mike Pence in Indiana did the same thing. They're, playing a quick game on us after they get elected.
Yeah, same old shell game. It's always a shell game, right? It's you move it around enough, and people just like using acronyms. You use enough acronyms, like with TPA, TPP, and TPA. I lose track. So that's the point.
I like how they just call it Obama trade. That makes sense to me.
Right, exactly. And so we should call Common Core Obama Ed.
Mm-hmm. And that's why whenever I talk about Common Core, I don't go into every single group because there's so many. I just call them the Common Core. Oh, the Common Core is doing this. The Common Core created this. Because once you get into the acronyms, you get lost, and it's like talking about the IRS codes.
Yeah, and it's the point. I really believe it's the point. Now, we had a really great question from the chat room.
Okay.
What do you think the impact is going to be? You mentioned private schools, and you said Common Core is not in the private schools yet. Is there an impact to those? Is there going to be an impact to homeschool parents going forward?
Yes, all the above. It's not officially in private schools yet, but the thing is, a lot of private schools are aligning their curriculum to the Common Core because one of the Common Core authors and one of the people who created the Common Core architect, David Coleman, just last year was appointed the head of the College Board. So he's now in charge of college admissions, basically, with the SATs. The College Board creates the SATs. So they completely reconstructed the SATs to align with the Common Core. So if your kids aren't being taught the Common Core standards and way of thinking, you're not going to pass the SATs. Another big thing they're doing is David Coleman also controls the advanced placement, U.S. history advanced placement courses in high schools. So in the past, those are the courses kids will take. The brightest kids in high school take in high school. Then they get college credit, and they don't have to take it in high school or in college. They changed the advanced placement history curriculum. It used to be a broad sort of, this is what you should do in advanced placement history. Now it's very prescribed. It's very point by point what needs to be taught. They completely changed our American history instruction to the brightest kids to where it's more, our history is more focused on what they call American imperialism, social justice. It marginalizes the founding fathers. It marginalizes our military victories, our involvement in World War I, or World War II, and it elevates social agitators and others, and it has this whole mindset that we are the problem in the world. And that's what's being taught to our kids. If you can't repeat that on a test again, the goal of Common Core is teach the kids to repeat back what they're given. And if those AP kids, our brightest, don't do that, they're not going to get AP credit. And so a lot of private schools are involved, and they're going to align themselves to that as well. Same with homeschooling. In order to get into colleges or pass tests, they're going to have to align themselves to this Common Core things. And homeschoolers are the biggest threat to Common Core because they don't have the kids in the seats every day in the public schools to indoctrinate them. So they're at home. So there are already some instances of states messing with, homeschoolers, maybe having home visits, maybe seeing if the kids are okay. Completely. Yeah, there's going to be more. I guarantee you. They've already got. They think years in advance, and I guarantee you, homeschooling, they're going after them more than we know already.
And that's fascinating. So homeschooling parents and parents of kids in private school both need to be concerned about this. So we've got about 2.5 minutes. Can you tell our listeners and the guys in our chat room what they can do? They're in there talking about getting active locally, about working with local schools and school boards and state legislatures. Tell them what you think the most effective thing to do to get rid of this menace. I mean, I know it's not too late. I believe it's never too late.
No, it's definitely not too late, and it's already shown in the last election cycle how powerful the anti-Common Core movement is. But definitely, you've got to find what your niche is. My niche I've discovered is more writing and speaking. I'm not a big organizer or creator of groups sort of thing. Like I have the Cult of Common Core Facebook page, and I wrote the book Cult of Common Core to explain the basics about what Common Core is. And the audiobook is coming out in the next week or so as well. But they can get the basics, get educated on the basics of what Common Core is. Then when news articles come out, in general, you have the background, so then you can deal with some of the acronyms, and you know what the updates are. Things are happening so fast, but don't get overwhelmed. Just every time you see an acronym, just say, oh, Common Core, and keep moving. Online, there's Facebooks in every state. Arizonans Against Common Core, Stop Common Core, Massachusetts. Every state has multiple groups. Get in there. They're always posting articles, seminars, interviews. I'll post this on my website. I'll tweet it out on Twitter. There's anti-Common Core people on there. So that's where you'll get involved with groups that are more, or that might be more action-oriented, that are actually on top of legislators. Because a lot of these moms are now going into the legislatures and crafting bills with them to end Common Core in their state. Because you can. In Arizona, we were 2 votes in the Senate away from getting rid of every facet of Common Core in our state. 2 votes. And our governor undermined it because he didn't want it gone. So you have to find your niche, but a good place to start is online, and you'll find like-minded people to share information with. Michelle Malkin has great articles. The Blaze covers it.
You have a Facebook page. Yeah, you have a Facebook page, and you can be found at Cult Common Core.
Yep, on Twitter, Cult Common Core, and Cult of Common Core and I'm Brad McQueen as well. I have 2 Facebook pages as well where I post things.
Excellent. Brad, we appreciate, we've got to cut to our last break and come back and end our show, but we appreciate you coming on and explaining the things that you did from your perspective. I know that you're going to continue working hard, and I know that our audience appreciates your perspective on how they can work hard to end Common Core in their state. So thank you so much. Best of luck to you, and we're behind what you're doing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
We'll be back in 2 minutes, folks.
K98Talk.com, a leader in Internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
I like America because it has good people.
A spirit that you can't keep down, a fire inside that'll never burn out. If you are the owner of an American heart.
K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@K98FM.com.
You didn't build that.
Stop.
You didn't build that. You didn't build that.
What are you yelling about now? Sit down, guys. I'm almost done. Come on, sit down. I'm on your side, man.
Cause we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list. And the Statue of Liberty started shaking her fist. And the eagle will fly. And it's gonna be hell when you hear mother...
Welcome back to our wrap-up for Red Nation Rising Radio. We appreciate you being with us tonight and listening to all the crazy things that we have going on. Just to recap, Brad McQueen, I guess the only thing to really say is lock up your kids. Make sure you know what they're learning in school, and take his advice. Visit his Facebook page to find out what you can do in your state. I think, Jared, that you had an announcement that you want to make.
Well, yeah, before that, his book, it's only $5, and it is an amazing book. I read Glenn Beck's, and his and Brad's is more informative, more detailed. Everything is footnoted. You can go to the sources. It's really, if you're fighting Common Core actively, I highly recommend it, picking it up. But yeah, this show, we're going to be played on another network another time during the night. Wanted to give a shout-out to Sean at shrmedia.com. We'll be played at 1 a.m. Eastern every night. It'll be a replay. A lot of times it's replays overnight on some of these networks. So if you ever miss a show, and we'll be playing every night about that time. So I want to thank Rick and Sean at SHR Media.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we really appreciate being included there, and definitely if you're on the West Coast, it would be a great time to catch us. So it's a little bit later in the evening, and that'll be a really great thing. So if you want to catch us a little bit later, you can definitely do that on SHR Media. So we really appreciate being included in that. Now, we want you guys to kind of stay tuned to what we'll be doing with the Yahoo News, because we're not done with them. And we're definitely not done with Miss Katie Solomon, as Jared indicated earlier. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, Jared, or
you know
much
what?
done talking about it.
I've cooled down over the last hour, but no, we're not done because she's not done. If she's calling here across the pond, making threats and trying to get our show off the air, we're not done. Yeah, we're not done. There'll be more to come on that. We're going to do some more digging, too, on her.
Yeah, so Jared's not done with her. Our digging team, our investigative team is not done with her. I know that our tweets out there are not done with her, and our state accounts are certainly not done with her. So we're going to keep pushing on this. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and the least that they could do. I can't believe they didn't take the article down. I've never been so,
you know what?
I mean, I've been disappointed in a lot of journalists and a lot of journalistic outlets and a lot of, but ABC really should be policing their properties a little bit, because Yahoo News is a property of ABC.
They're getting clicks and they're generating whatever amount of money it is, even if it's a little bit.
It's worth, yeah. Is it worth your reputation?
Well, no, they're idiots. But who's in charge there? Who's overlooking that? Somebody had to pull the image. Somebody pulled the headline. Somebody deleted the comments. So they're making a statement by leaving it up. They could have just pulled the whole thing down. It's a piece of crap anyway, right?
Right, exactly. And like you said, we're definitely not done. So next week we'll have attorney Rachel Alexander of Town Hall. Maybe she'll be able to give us a little bit of insight into Yahoo and some of their activities this week. That might be a good guest next week.
Yeah, I'll ask her ahead of time. Maybe she can come up with something. That's a good idea.
Maybe she can fill us in. And then please stay tuned. Coming up next week, it's JD and Stacy, and I'm told that there's going to be some pretty funny Donald Trump things going on
Some
the show tonight.
shenanigans. Some shenanigans.
Yes, some Donald Trump shenanigans tonight. So you definitely don't want to miss that. JD and Stacy and Donald Trump. That should really be a good one. So stick around for that, and we will see you right here on K98 Talk next Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to seeing you in the chat room.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great night. See you
Thanks,
next week.
Take care.
Happy 4th of July.
Over New York City.